One of the most consistent directors working today is none other than Alfonso Cuaron. While he may explore similar themes throughout his work, as any filmmaker does, he has never made the same film twice, and always tries something new with any of his work, whether he's adapting a beloved fantasy book, or depicting a dystopian world, or taking us into outer space. If his name is attached as a director, you're in for something truly special and unique. After starting his career on Mexican television, he made his feature directing debut with Solo con tu pareja, or in English, Only with Your Partner. This sex comedy starts off simple enough with a womanizing commercial writer constantly trying to bed various women. But the plot gets wackier and wackier when a disgruntled former lover informs him that he has AIDS. Alfonso Cuaron takes this story in wild and unpredictable directions, and it just gets funnier with every scene. Despite tackling otherwise serious topics like HIV and suicide, it manages to gain humor out of them, mainly because of how ridiculous the characters are. This is helped further by the off-the-wall performance by Daniel Jimenez Cacho, as he tries to get it together even as everything keeps falling around him. This is a pivotal film in Cuaron's filmography, not just because it was his first feature, but it established his collaboration with cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki. They already worked together before on short films and television, but you really see how well they gel here, particularly the way his camera emphasizes green, a color that makes memorable and striking appearances in almost all of Cuaron's work. While little seen outside of Mexico, it's not surprising this led him to a successful career abroad. Alfonso Cuaron's first English-language film was A Little Princess, based on the beloved book by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Despite the film being made during a period of live-action family films favoring the slapstick over the subtle, Cuaron took a respectful approach to the material and created a charming and beautiful little film. Cuaron and Lubezki paint the film with a stunning and imaginative palette, whether it's the magical depiction of India or the World War I era New York. He's also not afraid of portraying themes of loss in a mature way, particularly when the main character, Sara Crewe, is told her father has died in the war. He even depicts the racism of the time period in a way that is not sugar-coated, despite this being made for an all-ages audience. Most importantly, Sarah's a likable lead, who the film makes intelligent without coming across as the typical spunky child protagonist, and thus it makes it easier to root for her, especially when her world comes crashing down. The film also portrays empowerment through the importance of creativity and imagination, a theme I'm always appreciative of. The main antagonist, the owner of the boarding school Sara gets sent to, does feel a tad one-dimensional, as little reason is given for an intense dislike of Sara and a horrible treatment. Nonetheless, despite the title and lead protagonist, this is able to be a gender-neutral film that anyone of any age can appreciate. Despite Cuaron's later success, A Little Princess is still surprisingly under the radar, so definitely seek this one out sometime. After a disappointing modern adaptation of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, Alfonso Cuaron returned to Mexico to make a personal story about the awkward transition from teenagerhood to adulthood. Ito Mama Tambien is a more subdued film than Cuaron's other work, as he takes a French New Wave approach to the material, and even Lubezki's cinematography has a documentary-like feel to it. The film is frank in its depiction of the sexual frustrations felt by its leads, especially when they go on a road trip with a woman they meet at a party. Julio and Tinoch show serious growth throughout the film, and Cuaron shows the anger and even general ignorance they have about growing up and the notion of love. It's unflinching in its portrait, which leads to a number of uncomfortable scenes, but they're effective in showing the turmoil they're going through. Cuaron also takes the opportunity to show a different side to Mexico than we're accustomed to, which makes Ito Mama Tambien particularly unique. A minor complaint I have with the movie is whenever the narration kicks in. In addition to feeling a tad unnecessary, Cuaron also makes the unusual decision to have the sound quickly mute and the film pause for a couple of seconds, which gets really frustrating after a while, especially when watching on a DVD and I get scared the disc has been scratched. However, that's a minor issue I have with an otherwise solid film, and its depiction of teenagers actually proved helpful for Cuaron to embark on his next project. With Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban, Alfonso Cuaron had the tricky task of entering and putting his personal stamp on a world already established by J.K. Rowling and Chris Columbus in the first two films. The result was an imaginative take on Harry's adventures that really took him into darker territory, while still keeping the magic and whimsical nature of the series established in the books and earlier movies. A lot of the film involves the emotional turmoil Harry goes through as he wonders about his position in the world of wizards. We have a story where he's mostly by himself as he grapples with his parents' supposed backstabbing friend, escaped from prison, forced to stay indoors at Hogwarts, and protected by all the school administrators. With Sirius Black and the Dementors lurking about, there's a real danger happening to Hogwarts, and that plays into the adjusting period Harry is going through. He is not the young lad he was in Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, but somebody slowly becoming a teenager with a lot of angst he has to deal with. Cuarón also succeeds in making the film his own while still working within the guidelines set by Rowling. His use of light is particularly impressive, with the wands providing a light source for Harry in his journey, showing even in darkness that can be a bit of brightness to help reach a better tomorrow. Cuarón also injects a lot of inspired humor, especially with a fast-moving bus and the use of the Marauder's map. The finale is when things really kick into high gear, as the story behind Sirius Black becomes clear, and it also becomes a wild time-travel tale, with some horror movie-related elements thrown in for good measure. It all adds up to a film that's actually very character-focused, and those little bits and additions Cuarón brought to the various denizens of Hogwarts even surprised J.K. Rowling, and how Cuarón was able to include nuances she never revealed to anyone else that would play important roles in later books. Prisoner of Azkaban is actually my favorite book in the series, and Alfonso Cuaron created a film that honored the excitement, emotional power, and imagination that made that one so good, while still looking like an Alfonso Cuarón film rather than just another entry in this long-running franchise. In many ways, it's the Harry Potter film with the most personal directorial stamp in the entire series. Alfonso Cuarón stayed in Great Britain for his next film, the dystopian story Children of Men. The movie immediately begins with an intriguing premise. What if childbirth stopped existing? From there, Cuarón takes us on a non-stop journey with obvious but not overbearing symbolism related to the birth of Christ. The film also serves as a commentary on how governments can take one small problem in society and blow it up to instill fear in the populace. Through it all, it's a science fiction film that presents a more grungy future than we're accustomed to, with a surprising lack of technology, especially as Clive Owen's Theo becomes more involved in the story. In a lot of ways, this completely destroyed world is not unlike what we see on the news, when they reported of ravaged third world countries, thus giving it a realistic feel. The film also tackles the importance of children in instilling hope and giving us motivation to make the future better for them. When we stop having children, that necessity and need to strive is lost, and our society could very well fall into decay. It's a smart message subtly conveyed in the narrative. The use of single-shot takes are particularly impressive, with Emmanuel Lubezki taking us directly into the action, with one scene even totaling 6 minutes, with carefully hidden cuts. Children of Men is essentially a film that lets the visuals do the talking, as we absorb everything happening in the frame. I'm probably making this film sound very bleak, and yes, it is quite somber, but that's all key in portraying Cuarón's message, and how we need to become less brutal in how we react to fear in order to keep on going. Finally, we reached his most recent film, Gravity, which was quite an impressive technological achievement. It's probably a movie that more than any science fiction film succeeds in transporting the audience to outer space. It almost feels like an Epcot attraction in its roller coaster depiction of Ryan's attempt to get herself back home. The stunning visuals are quite breathtaking, both from the computer animators and Emmanuel Lubezki's cameras. The film even has occasional POV shots that feel like you're there with her. Gravity just gets more intense as it goes along, and Cuarón makes a smart decision to keep the film surprisingly short at 90 minutes. It's a simplistic story, and even the dialogue is fairly basic, but the major point of the film is the visuals and recreating the scary feeling that must come from being in space. Sandra Bullock adds to that too, as she shows all the terror, but also the hope that is going through her head. Even when she's just sitting in the spacecraft and listening to the radio, it's enthralling. Gravity is definitely a spectacular ride. As you can see, Alfonso Cuarón has certainly made his mark on cinema, when it comes to transporting us to faraway worlds, or even taking us down to earth. And he definitely has a limitless imagination, and knows how to use every single member of his crew. And whenever he signs on to direct something, it's certainly worth anticipating. See you next time.